great conversations going on around here. Anyone want to share your key thought before we go into the next segment? Great conversations. Yes.
So the courage slide really stuck with me, or just the emphasis on courage. And I know for everybody, courage looks a little bit different. And for me, I kind of came to this conclusion a couple years ago. It was like the courage to shut up, or to not to not jump into a silence with this sort of need to lead, but to just let another leader bubble up in a situation, especially if I wasn't feeling passionate about doing it. It was more of just filling a void.
Yep. Good point. Good point. Yes.
Daniel and I were talking about the concept of leadership as a choice, and it made me think about how leadership is a choice, and probably good leaders encourage the rest of their team to also make that choice in some capacity, so that everyone can have some form of leadership or ownership in whatever they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I try really hard because I'm old, right? Been to a lot of places. I mean, when I get into an organization, I try to create that culture where it's a safe, and that's what Simon Sinek's new book is about, Leaders Eat Last, building that safe environment where it's okay to fail. Matter of fact, we encourage you to fail and, make mistakes and learn from your mistakes, and if it doesn't work, learn from it and move on, and that takes a lot of time, and you have to be sincere about it, because people will figure you out if you're not. But to build that culture, and if you can do that where people feel comfortable, like the kitchen table conversations that I talk about. We have kitchen table conversations in our house that are very different than the conversation I'll have out with a group of business people. At home, food's flying and people are screaming and being themselves and having fun. That's the culture we want to create, where people feel it. Any others? Okay, great. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I can't.
No, that's all right. I should have spoken.
Oh, that's my fault.
No, I was just thinking from this last segment that it was really cool to notice that actually just being mindful and aware of your surroundings and the environment that you work in, the people who are there, just consider new things as a source of potential to be working with the people and to cite those little nuances that are going on. So, for instances, I guess.
That's a great point, Mark. I mean, I'm always looking at noticing new things. I mean, I do that everywhere I go. I drive my wife crazy. I mean, I was outside of Chicago waiting to get into a session in the library, and they weren't open yet. So I went over to Starbucks to grab some coffee, and I walked, and I'm noticing everything. I walked in and looking around, and they have tables are about this high, like this long, and they had 4 flat panel monitors molded to the table on each side here with these high stools. And in this wood grain, just like this, was the keyboard and a mouse that you use your finger, trackless mouse. But it was gorgeously done. And it was like all wood, and you just touch where the letters were, and it worked. And they had in all the booths, they had a flat panel monitor on the wall, and a booth, and 2 keyboards. And place was packed. And business people were in there. I observed one of them. There was a woman and a man. They were having a business meeting. They were up on the internet, and they fired up some site, and he's pointing at the monitor, and I went over to the library, and I said, "Did you ever been over to Starbucks?" I mean, I don't know how much that equipment cost, but wow, that's really, so things like that.
There's that action learning in place. You remember it, so.
Yeah. It hasn't set in yet. I still remember things. And it's exciting things. Okay, here we go. The next thing that we see that they know, they know it all starts with leadership. The other thing they know is they know the library's purpose. And that's where we get into this, starting with why. Drucker, I've mentioned him a number of times. I am a disciple of Peter Drucker, and I met him in '78 in Pittsburgh, and he was one of those guys that kind of changed the course of my life from that experience I had with him. That I saw him a couple times after that. I saw him right a couple months before he passed away, if he were with you today, or if he were working with you in your library today, he would ask you these 5 questions. He asked them of everyone he ever worked with. He asked them of Francis Hesselbein, who, as a matter of fact, Francis Hesselbein, Jim Collins, who wrote Good to Great, and a couple other of his friends put this book together after he passed away, and it's his 5 questions. He would ask you right off the bat, what is your library's purpose? First thing he asked you, what's your mission, what's your library's purpose? And I teased Simon Sinek about this. I said, that's Peter Drucker's line that you're using there. Because if you ever heard him talk about this, Peter, in that heavy Austrian accent, he would say, what's your library's purpose? Why do you do what you do? That's what he always asks. And then he would ask you, who's your customer? What's your customer value? What are the results that you're going to provide for those customers? And then what's your plan? How are you going to do it? That's a great little book here. It's on your book list because it gets into all those questions that we're talking about. I think when you get into knowing the library's purpose, it starts with knowing what you believe in as a team. Because the library, it's not the library's mission, it's not the library's vision, it's your mission, your vision. The library is the building. And it starts with knowing knowing what do we believe in as a team of people serving this community or this institution. So in your pre-workshop assignments, we asked you to take a look at this exercise. And it said, does your library have a stated mission statement? Does anyone have one? Okay, you know what it is? Okay, and we'll talk about it. And I said if you didn't, and do you have stated, I'm ahead of this, do you have stated values that you operate under? Okay, and if you do, ask you to bring them with them. If not, we ask you to go through the exercise. What we've done here is to list 50 values that we've seen in libraries who have stated values. And we just we put them in alphabetical order. There's many, many, many more, and we asked you to go through the list and pick 10 and then pretend you can only have 4. Which 6 would you give up to get to this piece here? So if you have that with you, hang on to it because we're going to get to that in a minute. This is Worthington Public Library. They're a small library in outside of Columbus, Ohio. And they won the 2007 Library Journal Library of the Year. And I remember in 2007 going out and visiting with the folks out there, and we asked them, tell us about your library. And the way they presented it, and remember this when you hear Simon Sinek's video here, we said, tell us about your library, and they said, well, let me tell you this. At the Worthington Public Library, we believe in service. And we believe in innovation, collaboration, leadership, and we believe in having fun. Those are our values. And when it comes to service, they said, we believe in helping people. That's why we do what we do. And we believe in creating a dynamic environment for learning and discovery, and we believe in sharing our talents and building partnerships to strengthen our community. And they've said that when it comes to leadership, we inspire our community and the library profession to excel. And when it comes to fun, they said we believe in engaging people in experiences that surprise and delight them. How cool is that? I mean, these are neat words that you don't normally see. But that creates an environment and a culture within an organization. And I remember the Worthington Public Library director telling me that back then, we use these values when we interview people looking for a job. And during the interview process, we show them these values and we go, are you okay with that? Because we have fun here, and if you're really serious and you're not, you're telling people shut up and be quiet and all this, I mean, they said, well, you might not be comfortable here. And we've seen that in a lot of places that we go to where they're incorporating fun into the values that come up. Because at that point, then that allows staff members and team members to talk to each other about it. Come on, you having a bad day? What's the matter? Come on, let's have fun. This isn't brain surgery here. I mean, we're helping people. This is Pam Salen Smith here. I took a screenshot. We were on an online leadership academy together, and Pam this was her presentation. She puts this up on the screen for 300 librarians across the country. This is a headline from the Denver newspaper back in 2002, I think. Yeah. Said, Adams County library system is the worst in the state. She said, how would you like to wake up and see that in the morning? Now, they knew they had a problem there. She was not there at that time. They brought her in. And they started to turn that thing around. And it was amazing because in 2010, they were awarded the National Medal for Museum and Library Services as one of the best libraries in the world.
Best job titles in the world.
And the best job titles in the world. And the best logo,
Yeah.
right? And she was telling the people on this webinar, she said, the first thing we did was to sit down with the people in that library and say, what do we believe in as a group? Because we're not going to be the worst library in the state. What do we want to do here? What do we believe in? And this is what they came up with collectively as a group. They said, we believe in having compassion for our customers and each other. We're in this together. And we believe in passion for our product, the collection, the programs, the services that they deliver. And they believe in eagerness to learn. Everyone is creative, and they believe in being optimistic and believe anything is possible. And that's the collective staff said that's the environment we want to work in. And Pam said, well, let's go do it. And off they went. She has this sign, they created this sign that hangs in the library, in the staff area. It's like a sports team, you know, on your way out to the field, you smack the sign on your way out. And, but look what it says. I mean, you can just get a flavor for what kind of place that is just by reading that sign. And then she worked with the local ad people in the community to create a new look for the library. And they changed the name to Anythink. That's the name of the library. And there's the logo. Like, who cares? Come on. That is so cool. But that's a big part, and so many organizations fluff over the fact that we don't care about values, you know, and mission statements. We need results. We need to make money. We need funding. But if you go back to, and I think Robert said this, you go back to the why and tell people why we're doing these things, then everyone will buy into your why. If all you tell them is what we're doing and how to do it, that's where you're going to stop. These are the types of things people get passionate about. If I would like you to do something for me now, this sticky note here came from Oklahoma City session we did. Those 4 values that you have with you somewhere, whether they're your libraries or yours or whatever you brought, take one of these sticky notes and one of the Sharpies, and I will collect my Sharpies at the end of the day. I'm tired of buying Sharpie revolution. I do 2 workshops a week, and there are usually 100 people with per, and I was buying 200 Sharpies every week.
One more set of sticky notes.
Oh, sticky notes?
Did we lose 3 people?
Someone back.
Thank you.
Bring a copy
You got
of our
it.
values
Got 'em?
and then you share them with us. And,
So do what Katie did here and just print with a Sharpie so we can see them. And just write the 4 values or your values on a sticker. You can use a stick here, Sharpie there. Okay, once you have those on that sticky note, just set the sticky note aside for a second. We're gonna hang them on the wall here in a minute. The next piece of this, and we're talking about knowing the library's purpose. And that is typically your, you know, it's in the form of a mission statement. Peter Drucker hated the term mission statement, he preferred the term statement of purpose. And Peter would tell you that all it is a simple, short statement of purpose. It does not prescribe means, it just says why you do what you do. It's why you do what you do, it's your library's reason for being, and I like this part, it's what in the end you want to be remembered for. And again, we asked you, does your library have a mission statement? If so, bring it with you. And we'll take a look at some of these. This is Simon Sinek's golden circle that he talks about. And you'll hear him talk here in a minute. Most people, most organizations, if you ask them, tell me about your library, tell me about your organization, the normal reaction is they immediately start by telling you what they do. And they might tell you how they do it, and then they want you to support them and buy into what they do. That's conventional thinking. The great leaders, if you ask them to tell you about their organization, they start by telling you why they do what they do, how they do it, and then what they do. So it's backwards. This is Fayetteville Library in Fayetteville, Arkansas. They were 2004 LJ Library of the Year. They said that their statement of purpose, their purpose was to strengthen our community and empower our citizens through free and public access to knowledge. That's why they do what they do, and that's what they want to be remembered for. Louise Schaefer was the director there at the time when we did this. We crafted this thing, and she was so mad behind the scenes, and she said, they're just being librarians. I want 4 or 5 words at the most, and this is too many words. And I said, Louise, this is what you do. That's what they came up with, and people bought in. 5 years later, they were named Library of the Year. When she went in there 5 years before that, they were the worst library, the worst section of town, with no funding, no collection, no nothing. And through leadership and a lot of changes, and people buying into that, they changed everything. King County was 2011 Library Year, and they said their statement of purpose was to provide free, open, and equal access to ideas and information to all members of the community. Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh was a client of mine. We did their strategic plan 3 years ago. Crafted this statement of purpose around what they've been doing for 100 years. Said their purpose is to engage our community in literacy and learning. And the other thing these things allow you to do is say no. Because once you have a statement of purpose, there's your part of your litmus test right there. If someone comes with a program or a service and says, we need to get into this business, she'll say, wait a minute, does it fit our purpose? Because if it doesn't, then there's someone else in this community who can probably do it better than we can. Because they're all about literacy and learning here and engaging the community. And this was Nashville. Anytime you ever see a mission statement that I work on, and I thought of you, Robert, when you said, I want to tell you 3 things, because it's the rule of 3, right? Steve Jobs used it very successfully. The framers of our country and the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Because if you read anything about the rule of 3, our minds think like that. And Jobs would say, I want to tell you about the new iPhone. When I let you leave here, I want you to remember 3 things. And now I'm going to tell you 3 things about this first thing, and 3 things, it was always about 3s. But Nashville, I love this. They said their statement of purpose is to inspire reading, advance learning, connect our community. And we do it this way so that staff people can, all they have to do is remember this. They don't have to remember 3 paragraphs. And then they make it their own. So if I say, tell me about your library, they remember inspire, advance, and connect. Well, what do you mean inspire reading? Well, we have collection, we have this, they just talk about what they do, tell stories.
Are these still values or are they mission?
This is mission.
Okay.
Right. These last several have been missions. This was a school outside of Houston, and this was pretty cool. They said their purpose is to redefine possible by creating life-changing opportunities for students from low-income communities. And they are passionate about making this happen. This is a university. This is Penn State. Julie and I were just talking about the work we do at Pennsylvania, and we do a lot of work with Penn State. This is their statement of purpose, their mission statement that's on their website. And when we were in a session with them, and we were reading this, I said, I'll tell you what, when I look at this, to me, this seems to be your why right here. To advance intellectual discovery, information literacy, and lifelong learning, serving Penn State goals in teaching, research, service, and outreach. That's their purpose right there. How they do it is here, by creating a welcoming, supportive, and inclusive environment that connects students, scholars to world information ideas. And then what they do is here. Active participant in a worldwide community of scholars, our faculty and staff select, create, organize, facilitate access to resources that are relevant to the university. This is what they do. And Drucker would say, there's your statement of purpose right there. Right? And then when you have that conversation with people, you're going to get into the rest of it. And it's great to have all that in writing for grants and funding and all those things that you need for those reports. But we like it when there's a statement that represents all that. I put a sheet in there to go through your mission statement. And you can see it there. I mean, you just, if you go back, take a look at it. And ask those questions of you and your colleagues. I'll show you this video from Simon. This is basically a short version of his TED Talk. And I always warn people when we do this, he is talking to a group of business people about 3 years after the last economic downturn. And I just say that because I have lots and lots of friends who are librarians, and a lot of times they get really twitchy when we use business examples. You know, and we're not Apple, we're a library, and all this stuff, and you know, expand your mind. And listen to what he's saying from a leadership standpoint. And when at the end, when he does use the example of Apple, when they say, you know, tell us about your company, think about someone asking you, tell me about your library, and how you would frame it based on what Simon's saying.
Fora TV. The world is thinking.
All those great leaders and all those great organizations, everything from Martin Luther King to Apple Computers, it doesn't matter. Big companies, small companies in every single industry. All those that command great loyalty, people. Loyalty is a feeling. Loyalty is a feeling, a human feeling. All those that command loyalty from employees and from customers and from investors. Every single one of them, regardless of their industry, thinks, acts, and communicates the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everybody else. All I did was write it down. And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. It's a bullseye. In the middle is the word why. The center ring is the word how. And the outside ring is the word what. It's this little idea that distinguishes those that survive those 3 years. And more importantly, it's this little idea that is able to inspire people to join you in your pursuit. Every single organization on the planet knows what they do. You know the products you sell and the services you offer. Some organizations know how they do what they do. These are the things that we think make us special or better or stand out from our competition. But not very many organizations can clearly state why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. By why, I don't mean to have an exit strategy. By why, I mean what's your purpose, what's your cause, what's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why did you get out of bed this morning? And why should anyone care? As a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. We tell people what we do, we tell them how we do it, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, support, a vote, working hard. But all the inspired leaders, those with the capacity to inspire, every single one of them, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, thinks, acts, and communicates from the inside out. They all start with why. I use Apple very frequently because they're easy to understand and we all get it. If Apple were like everyone else, a piece of communication from them would sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? That's normal. Here's our new technology company. We have these features and that features, and we're better than our competition in this way. We're simpler and have a better user interface. Choose us. This is normal. Here's our law firm. We have all the best lawyers. We went to all the best schools. We win all of our cases. Choose us. This is the norm. But all the inspiring leaders and all the inspiring organizations do it differently. This is how Apple actually does it. They start here. Everything we do, they say, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? It feels different. You want to join me in this pursuit, not because my computers are better, but because you believe what I believe.
Make sense?
Well, yes and no. Look around, we're mostly women.
Yeah.
Libraries, a woman's mind, or a woman's mind is a web. And business is a linear. I do have trouble looking at just the selling model. I'm not selling my library.
But it's not the selling model.
That is, so far I've heard only the selling model.
Yeah, well,
Yeah. I really think you have to go somewhere different to think like librarians, the majority of librarians are thinking.
I totally see this as
Yeah.
a librarian, and
Really?
you know, I think that why is just core. And I've been thinking a lot about sort of my section at the library has got different goals than most libraries. We primarily serve state employees, and for me, I was trying to narrow it down to a smaller and smaller and smaller and get more to the core. And we want to make Alaska a better place, and we make Alaska a better place by serving state employees who make Alaska a better place.
Right.
And we do that by getting the information, resources, and that they need to do their work. And that seems like a real logical progression, and getting at that center core seems really crucial, because getting databases and government documents is not exciting for most people. It is for us. But making Alaska a better place, who can't get behind that?
yes.
I also think that the why part of it sort of does connect to the other things in a web, and that it drives everything else. And I think that what he's saying makes sense if I think about the library and think about when I meet people, I want to say we offer this program and we offer this program and this program, versus explaining to people why the library is passionate about those things and why those programs exist. And I think that is a lot more appealing to people than just the list of programs.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, in any industry or any segment, libraries, I don't care what it is, not-for-profits, whatever you're looking at, if you're somewhere and someone says, tell me about your organization, and you go into what you do, I mean, there's no connection there. I mean, a lot of times because of the terminology and everything is attached to everybody's different organizations and industries, they're like, what are you talking about? Serials, acquisitions, and I mean, and door counts and our circulation and all that. But when you start out with, let me tell you why I do what I do, because we want to create this environment where people can come here and change their own lives. Wow, how do you do that? I mean, that starts the conversation. And then you get into how you do it and what you do. So I don't think it's a sales
I
model.
just like another example that's more.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I agree entirely, start with the why, but it's not all linear. It's not all to sell something. It's not all to. For me?
I don't know if Apple is either. I guess that's why he maybe uses that as an example, is that, I mean, so much of what Apple's done, for instance, by opening up kind of the App Store and things like that is opening up for people like make things and play, and you know, here's a platform that people can use this stuff on, and things like that, where you know, the iTunes Store, it's like, well, yeah, they're selling, but it's also like, here is the world's music for you.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Apple, and we're not going to get into business stuff.
Yeah, but
I mean, that they changed the music industry, they changed the computer industry.
well,
they changed
and
the telephone
the
industry.
music piracy industry, even like
Yeah.
I don't feel like that comes up anymore. So.
And now people come and say, you know, boy, they're in trouble, they haven't come up with anything new lately. Well, they've changed 3 or 4 industries.
It's hard work.
You know, everything I do now, you can trace things back. And like my son's, when the iPhone came out, he slept in the back of his Jeep in front of the store to get in line, and I'm like, Corey, you could get it in a week or 2. I mean, because they buy into their why, that they're they're challenging the status quo and all these things. So I get on it, but we're getting off track. This was like Nashville. Now, and the reason that Simon was talking about that is that when you start with why, and we kind of put this together, I mean, this could be any library up here. I mean, tell me about your library. Well, the Nashville Public Library, everything we do is designed to create an environment where people can come and change their own lives. And how do you do that? By providing free, open, equal access to information and ideas. And this is their mission statement right here. It inspires reading, advances learning, and connects our community. That's how we do it. And when you start with why and how, when you start with why, it creates a demand to join this cause, to support this library. And because I believe in that too, and I want people to be able to come to a place and improve their own lives. And the how creates a demand for community engagement. I want to be a part of this. And that speaks directly to that limbic part of your brain that controls decision-making and emotion, which is how we make decisions. So you get to this, and you get to the how, and then you go, wow, how do you do all that? Well, the way we do that, this is a small library in New York that I part of my hometown. These are all their programs and services for January, February, March. For teens, adults, children, this is what they do. And when you show people what you do, it creates a demand for these programs and services that speaks directly to that neocortex part of your brain that controls rational thought. Right? And that's when people get behind you and want to be a part of it. And that's why, you know, powerful leaders, this is the way they think and talk. Because they know when you go in for funding and you go into a lot of these things, you know, if you can't convince people that your value and why you do what you do is important, you're in trouble. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. What I would ask you to do now is take another sticky note and a black Sharpie, and here's me and Simon. This was at PLA. And that's me and Dave Lankes. Write on a sticky note and print it so we can read it. Might have to do a Twitter version of it. Your library statement of purpose.
The one that we currently have, or the one that we would hope to?
I would put if you want to put what we want to be, put it down, or what it is. Or we've had people who came to these sessions and their libraries didn't have one, and we said, well, what do you want it to be? Is it? Yeah.
It's probably got the how, what, why. All.
Yeah. Yeah, look at that. And what do you think the essence of that is? This was a session I did with a group of staff people at one library, and they didn't have a stated mission or values. And we started out with them and said, you individually, why do you get out of bed in the morning? Why should anyone care? What is your purpose? And these are all individual staff people at this library. And when I typed it on this slide, I showed it to the director and I said, what do you think about this? And she said, I was really taken by how many of them said to help people. So we highlighted these when we showed it to staff again. But this is why staff people do what they do. Yeah. If you can take your 2 sticky notes and put them together, like they did here, like that up there, and just stick them on that wall, so that on your lunch hour you can come in and you can take a look at what everyone in the room says what their values are and what their statements of purpose are. Okay? see how we did it. This was in Illinois. Okay. I want to share this comment with you, and then I'm going to ask Robert and Elise again to share a key thought, and then we'll get to your action plan. This was a quote from Peter Block. And think about what you wrote down, what our values are and what our purpose is, and you think about that, and look at this quote. Choosing to act on what matters is a choice to live a passionate existence. And if you believe in what this is what we believe in, and this is what we believe our purpose is, then I would challenge you to lead a passionate existence. And say, this is what we do. Acting on what matters is a stance whereby we declare we are accountable for the world around us, and we are willing to pursue what we define as important. That's why great leaders do that, because you can get it down to a point where people buy into what your purpose is and what your values are. They will get passionate about it, just like that bunch right there. And this is their library right here. I mean, these are their program guides for the, and that's what they do every day. So that's where we want to go. Elise, Robert, any?
I am Robert. Yeah.
Oh, there you are. Did he leave? I didn't even notice he left. Hi, Millie, how are you? I'll tell you what, Elise, you want to go first?
I'm getting a little bit high over here from this marker.
Extra smelly Sharpies.
Whew, yeah. You know, I guess for me this is an area where I struggle, and where we redid our mission statement, and then the values. We have values, and we never got them out of sort of draft status, or we got some of them out of draft status, but not all of them. And so, and it's that whole thing of like, well, is this a value or is this a how? Is this a what? Like trying to figure out where they fit in which column and stuff is just kind of. And so I guess I don't feel hugely leadership-y in this particular area. So I do feel like I have my own. When we were sort of thinking about having additional areas stay within the library, our writing and testing center, learning center, and also a new center for excellence in teaching and learning, and wanting to have those kind of resources in the library. Our existing, it wasn't impacted by our existing mission statement, but I think that I started having that 1-minute kind of elevator speech that I would use with the chancellor and others that was a little different than what our mission statement was, which was about being the place that sort of brings the resources and expertise together to support student learning and faculty development outside the classroom. And so it's kind of a pithy way of saying we're trying to be, this engaging place where kind of one-stop shopping for students and faculty outside the classroom. And that is sort of limiting in terms of a mission statement, because it doesn't include that we're open to the public, and that we want to be diverse and include all these other kinds of things that are important. And if you leave them out of your official mission statement, you feel like you're not addressing something you should be. So I don't know how to get around that, I guess, because that isn't our mission. That isn't what we have our official mission statement. And so I don't know.
When you say we have our official mission statement, is the official mission statement of the library or the university?
No, the library. It's support scholarship, research, and creative activities at UAS by providing relevant, diverse, and well-maintained collections, by helping people evaluate and efficiently use those resources, and by creating a welcoming environment for all. So we kind of tried to creating a welcoming environment for all is like the diversity issue, and that we're open to the public, and then by the well-maintained, because preservation is important to people in technical services, and because, so you have these, and information literacy is important. So that's why we're helping them efficiently use those resources, and that, so it's like you try to, but it's not pithy, it's a lot to put on one sticky tab. That's probably why I got a little high from the marker. But again, how do you get around that? Everybody wants the thing that they do to be sort of encapsulated in the statement.
But I guess everything we do should fall under the why.
Right. And that's why that top part there, to advance intellectual discovery, information literacy, and lifelong learning, you know, that is sort of close, I guess. But
Yeah,
then
and
that
that's-
how is that second part, that's why I thought, like, because we do the welcoming, environment, inclusive, and so, yeah, I don't know, it's just tricky.
I mean, for this university library, I mean, I said, I think this, you know, adding this line, because that was very important, you know, that plus serving Penn State's goals in teaching, research, service, and outreach. Someone from the University of Alaska at the Anchorage session said, you know, we should be talking about the students and the faculty and the people that we serve. We should try to make it more about the people
Right.
in there somehow. Knowing that this is very important to the institution, but focusing on, hey, we're here to help students. I mean, there's a university in Rhode Island, they have an incredible mission statement, and a short little thing, but it was about our purpose is to, I can't remember what it was, but I'll get it to you. Support students and, you know, as they go out into the world to change the world. I can't remember what they said, but it was so powerful. And it said, and it was in alignment with the university's overall mission. But when you read it, it was like, yeah, that's what they do. I mean, they're there for faculty and students and community members to come in.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of our values is being student-centered, and yet we don't mention students specifically in our mission.
And that was and this is something so that Jonas actually suggested was, we got, so words are powerful and they leave an impact, and just in one little space planning meeting, I'd mentioned something was the public workstations or something. And that led to something being characterized that we were a public library, and then suddenly our chancellor was at a legislative thing talking about how our library had too much of a public library mission and that we needed to be more academic, and I was like, what the? So now we call our public areas student areas, and student, you know, like, but we have to sort of try to rebrand, because yes, we are open to the public, but we are essentially an academic library, and students are main, but that could have a serious budgetary impact. I mean, it led to a self-study and all this, I mean, so just be careful what you say.
Yeah, it's true. I agree. Yeah. Okay, well, we're gonna, did you understand what was going on here?
A little bit.
Okay.
And I don't have any technology, and I don't happen to know our mission statement by heart. I'm in youth services.
Yeah.
But we do have the three pillars that I really am proud that we have, is to educate, entertain, and inspire.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's good.
And that you can remember three components out of it. Those are
Yeah, there's words all around that.
We talk about it all day.
Those are the three things
Yeah,
that
okay.
we exist for.
All right. Okay. Okay, so before we break for lunch, take a minute if you haven't already done so. Write down a key thought you took away from that section. You know the library's coming. Okay. It's 12:30. We ran a little over. So what I would ask you to do is break for lunch, continue the conversation over lunch, or go out and make sure you come back. I'm here. Continue on without me. I'm going to start up at 1:30, so we'll see you all back here at 1:30. And if you're not here, I'll assume you're doing something really important.